Her story deals with a subculture of heavy metal music that some feel is sending a dangerous message to your kids.
The forces of evil on the dark side of devil right.
And I want to talk tonight about the devil and demons and witches and wizards.
And we just mix it up with hardcore and aggression and come out with something we think's an original sound.
Loud, fast, heavy, you know.
Well, what do you got?
What do you got?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Riff Worship, a show that we like to talk about riffs and people that make riffs and albums with riffs. And sometimes we talk to people that make good riffs. Not today, though. I am Justin Swindle, the oldest man alive, only because an older person didn't join us on the call today. But I am joined by Austin Paulson, the Illinois Kid Wonder, and Dylan Adams, the Great Bald Hope from Arkansas. Fellas, how y'all doing?
Is Pat older?
Yeah.
Pat is older.
Damn. Sorry, Pat. Tough break, Pat.
How you doing, Dill?
I'm living. Living life. Living the dream.
You got to go out and race horses a couple weeks ago, right? You were out there with all the...
No. I was in the lowly secondary market. I was in the bush leagues. We just redirected the signal. You know, you were the one that was stuck indoors from all that.
Yeah. But you're gonna go out and race horses in August.
Yeah. Oh, so much fun! Can't wait for that. Haunted my dreams, my fucking racehorses.
The horse song ain't on this record, though, right?
No. No.
What are we talking about, Swindle?
We are doing a part 3 of our drawn out deep dive of Converge. I think we've done a couple deep dives already, but usually they're consecutive. But for Converge, we just decided we throw an episode in here and there. Sprinkle it in whenever we get bored, you know?
Yeah. Take that guy who commented one time about, wow, I can't believe you guys started with that record. I'm like, we'll get to this one. I promise you we're going to get to this one.
Today we're going to talk about Jane Doe, a record I don't think anyone's ever talked about before. I think we're the first people to do a podcast about it.
Ludacris and Converge never mentioned one time.
Never mentioned ever again. No one ever talks about this band.
Yeah, the podcast that y'all like, Hardlore, the way I said that, it made it seem like I don't like it, but I just don't listen to it. They did an episode one time about like the greatest opening tracks in a hardcore record, and I was very surprised that The Saddest Day was like the track from a Converge album that they picked, and it may have been like the greatest on their list, or it was really high up, but Concubine for me is like a fucking all-time opening track. It is just insane right out of the fucking gates.
The classic intro, it's like the thing that I hear when someone says like Jane Doe, I just think of that little like
yeah,
just in my ears.
It's loud. It's abrasive from the fucking get-go. It's 45 minutes long, you know, and 11 of those is the title track, right?
Right.
So it's a relatively short album, even with that longer track on there. And it, even on the moodier tracks that are on here, it doesn't let up. There's still something very abrasive and feral about the whole record.
Yeah.
You know, looking back on the prior episodes that we've done on Converge, and there's very little left of that original sounding band on this album. There's a couple spots, like, don't get me wrong, it's there, but it's not there much longer. Like, this is, I think I said it on the our first dive into the band, that this album is or those two albums were kind of the last time that band sounded that way. Once this band released Jane Doe, every album after it has had a similar kind of quality to it that still resembles this in nature, but doesn't sound like it. Because I think all their albums have a different tonality and a different feel to them. But they all have this kind of similar organic thing going on with it. And this is the record where it kind of started. This is where I started making those. Oh, they're like the Neurosis of hardcore kind of thing. This very long tenured elder statesman of these wildly creative individuals that are in multiple bands, do multiple projects, have their hands in labels and art and everything. And this is where it begins with one of the loudest fucking records ever made.
Right. I didn't going through the research for this album kind of caught me off guard. I was not a fan. I mean, when this record came out, I was like 11. So not surprisingly, I was not a fan of music like this when I was 11 years old. I didn't realize from the time I've listened to this album, like it was very well fucking regarded, known as like a classic. I didn't realize that the reception of the album initially was not like as great as people uphold it now.
Yeah, there's like I remember reading an article in preparation for this where like Nate, I think this was like an interview maybe with like Revolver, I could be wrong, but basically said that Jacob had like a file, like a folder of like from maybe like a press release person at the time, and he compiled all of these like negative reviews of the record and he still fucking has it. And yeah, it's really hard not to think of this record as just like this changed everything, right? And at the time, it's just another record. People maybe didn't know what to, you know, make heads or tails of it, but I mean, it's fantastic. And you know, I've mentioned in previous episodes that Swindle, you showed me this record, as with all their other records that in their discography we talked about so far. But it's also one of those records that, you know, I almost feel bad for them. It's just so good, and they have just been tied to the hip with this thing forever, and it's kind of been difficult to escape. Like right now, I mean, out of the gate, I mean, I'm sure this is up there on the ranking of their records, but I don't believe this is your favorite record of theirs, correct?
Mine, yes.
It is yours. Okay. I think Dylan's is different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mine's No Heroes, which is 2 albums later.
Gotcha. Okay. So I'm wrong, but still, like, you just come to find like every interview after this release is just like, so what does it feel like to have written Jane Doe? Do you feel like the shadow of the looming presence of Jane Doe hovering over you? It's just like, hey man, it was a fun record to make. We did real great. It's the first record. We were able to really collaborate with one another, but like also all these other records are really sick too.
There's some promotional interviews that were done around the time of the You Fail Me record being released. And I think every other question might have been about Jane Doe. Well, how do you feel since Jane Doe was released? How does it feel to put out a new batch of record or a new batch of songs since Jane Doe was released? How does this album differ from Jane Doe? How do you feel about the reception of it? It's like, God, okay. No wonder maybe a couple of them were a little upset about that. Like, I'd get it too. It's like, you're measured by this, right? You know, there are so many bands that get measured by whatever their classic record is. And it's arguable that this band's classic record is this. And I would probably lean more in the hat of it is. And that's just a personal opinion. But there are so many bands that get measured by it. But I feel like this band probably gets it more. I don't know. Like, I've done a lot of research on a lot of different bands throughout the years. And this band seems to be tied most to this. And it probably has a lot to do with the iconography of the portrait, the artwork that basically became a modern day Fiend skull. Like there's probably not a hardcore show, hell, even a, underground death metal show without somebody with something to do with the Jane Doe album cover, patch, whatever, you name it. They've got it there. It's kind of in the DNA of the modern day hardcore scene. And it is funny to think about what this album and this band's always been kind of tied to, which is that early wave of metalcore, right? Late 90s, early 2000s. And this album sounds like nothing like what you would hear in metalcore today by any means, like at all. It's like polar opposite ends of the spectrum. And it completely changed how music was done, especially in underground like hardcore, metallic hardcore, metalcore, whatever you want to call it. It flipped it on its ass, like completely changed the viewpoint of it all. There's labels that wouldn't exist without it. There are subgenres of bands. I mean, I don't think black market activities would exist without this album. Death Wish obviously was in its very early stages, and that was always kind of tied in, but there's so many bands that were signed to that label that wouldn't exist without this album. I mean, you name it. I mean, this album kind of just changed the whole genre, the whole plane of extreme bands, hardcore metal, weird, whatever. Like, there's so much of a influence from this album. I mean, even with a couple of the more moody tracks on here, like you think of where those went. It's a game changer. That's the easiest way to say it.
Because we have 2 episodes kind of going over earlier history, we're not going to cover it in depth. Just kind of like an overview. As the band starts in 1990, Jake is playing bass, Jeff Feinberg is on guitar, and Damon Bellarato is on drums. They meet Kurt Ballou, who is like actually owns a guitar and knows how to play guitar, so he becomes a guitarist. Feinberg moves to bass, and Bannon moves to vocals. They meet Aaron Dalbec at a show. He joins the band. They also meet Trey McCarthy at the same show, who Bannon would start Death Wish Inc. with at a later date, around the time that like we're going to be talking about. They release a handful of smaller releases, including like Petitioning the Empty Sky, which goes through like a handful of different releases, adding songs to it like every time. They finally release their first full length, When Forever Comes Crashing, in like 1997. But before that full length, Jeff Feinberg leaves the band and is replaced by Steven Brodsky, who would be in Cave In and Mutoid Man and several other releases. He records When Forever Comes Crashing and a handful of other songs on smaller releases. And then after When Forever Comes Crashing and like the touring and the smaller releases after that, Brodsky leaves and Damon Bellarato leave the band also. Damon Bellarato is replaced by John DiGiorgio, who also leaves the band. He is only featured on The Poacher Diaries, which is a split with Agoraphobic Nosebleed. Because Bellarato leaves the band, they need to replace him. They would go on to replace him with Ben Kohler, who Kurt Ballou had seen record 2 different bands. One of them is Force Fed Glass, and the other is Bastion. Bastion only has like a 3-song EP. Force Fed Glass, I think Kurt Ballou recorded one of their records. And he meets Ben Kohler recording that stuff, and just like sees how he plays the drums, keeps him in the back of his mind, is like, oh, like this dude is fucking wild at the drums, like I gotta keep in touch with this guy. And it comes back to be helpful, because obviously he would join the band. As I said, Brodsky also leaves the band, and they replace him with Nate Newton, who also still in the band currently. So they've like mostly shored up this lineup that they would keep for the vast majority of the existence of Converge. I think Aaron Dalbec met Nate Newton because he played with Converge before some band before Jesuit.
Yeah, I think the story was like Aaron was hanging out with another Massachusetts band called Dive, which has like I think featured some members of like Dropkick Murphys or some shit in it. Like it was random, and the show they were talking about even like I think had some kind of key players before they were like big. I think even like Josta was at the show or something. But regardless, Aaron meets Nate while he was playing in a band called Channel. Aaron really likes that band. He gives them some like exchanges some Converge stuff. He's like, hey, you should when you're in like Massachusetts, we should play. And I think they did their first tour together potentially. Is how I at least read in our research. But then later, Nate's in Jesuit and they tour with Converge. So then when Steven leaves, they're in need of a fill-in. He wasn't like immediately like, a full-time member, but he was like, I don't have anything else to do. I'll just fucking do it. And kind of in a similar way with Ben Kohler, he and Kurt also played in like a side project band, Blue Green Heart. And I think when John left, he found out about it like while at a practice for that band. And so he maybe was like jamming with Ben on some Converge tracks. I think I even read like Ben didn't know how to play double bass at the time. So they were kind of like not sure if he was going to be able to do it because there was a lot of double bass stuff on those like earlier tracks. But I think they just knew like at a certain point, I was like, this is the dude. Here's this 19-year-old guy fresh out of high school, fucking amazing drummer. And they, and a lot of quotes that we found in doing research for this episode, it really feels like Ben's inclusion kind of gave the band new life. I think Swindle mentioned off air, like this band had probably almost broken up like several times. So this was kind of like a foundational piece of the puzzle going forward.
Yeah, they would say like in at least one interview that I watched, they would say that like Ben Kohler like stopped the band from breaking up, just like having him and having his style of drumming in the band. Like if they didn't have him, if they had kept like DiGiorgio or one of the other guys, like they would have been done with music. But instead, like they are still here, still fucking legends in the hardcore scene. In this time frame, something to keep in the back of your head is that Bane releases the album Give Blood, which kind of would be some writing on the wall for Aaron Dalbec later. That kind of brings us up to speed on Converge, like maybe a long abridged version of their history up to Jane Doe, but they start writing Jane Doe. Kurt Ballou kind of says like before Jane Doe, he was kind of a control freak with all the Converge stuff. Like he wrote everything, and he said like that is kind of attributed to just the way he preferred to write music, but he also thought that like the other people that were in the band like weren't in a place where they could contribute music to the band. But when Nate joins the band, there are 2 songs on Jane Doe that are like fully written by Nate, but Nate felt like he could challenge Kurt Ballou and be like, this part doesn't sound good. I think you need to rework this. Like, I think this doesn't go great here. This doesn't sound great. And Kurt, that was kind of the first time anyone challenged Kurt or challenged the way he wrote or anything like that. And the first time Converge will be kind of collaborative in general.
I did like to, I think it's also important to note that with Nate being kind of not only like challenging, he's also in the area for like the first time. Because I think while he was in Jesuit, like he was still in Jesuit while being in this band, he was having to like make the trek up to Massachusetts to be able to like write and play and do all that. So now I think they said he lives like just outside of Boston, maybe north. Everyone's in the area. You do have Aaron kind of going out and doing some of these Bane tours. There was a quote that, I was basing a lot of my information off of the Decibel Hall of Fame, which they like just posted digitally, like the whole thing now. So you can read that. But Aaron's basically going off and doing these Bane tours. He'd be writing while he was on tour and then would come back and like continue writing with the band. I did also see that it seems like they were using drop C tuning pretty frequently, like for this record and like on everything after it. There is a quote from Kurt where there's a mention of a particular song off of the Poacher Diaries, Minnesota, where he like kind of was fucking around with maybe like an alternate tuning. I couldn't really confirm what exactly it was, but this kind of inspired him to work out like this one song on this split essentially maybe inspired a lot of the guitar work that would come on Jane Doe.
Yeah, they said it was said that he like invented a tuning for this record.
If you listen to some of the structures, some of the chord voicings on this album in particular, everything has this overtly kind of dissonant sound, this disjointed sound. And, you know, it's not like they're intentionally making it dissonant. It's probably just where the hands fell, right? A lot of the big lush kind of articulated chords that Kurt's playing very aggressively on this record always has a couple notes that seem slightly flat or sharp. And it fits with the scope of this album, but it's very much it definitely seems like a variation of an open tuning of some sort, but it fits, it works. And the band has obviously used variations of that, as you said, on the albums that came after it as well. So sometimes it does just take altering whatever you're doing to bring inspiration.
Speaking of inspiration, the lyrical themes and the vibe of this record very much influenced by a very turbulent time in Jake Bannon's life. I don't know too much about the actual specific details, but he always kind of mentions this like 5-year relationship kind of coming to an end and having to deal with that. And so, you know, he's kind of channeling that into the lyrics and themes of the record. There was a quote, and I don't mean to laugh, but it was just like, I thought this would help. It didn't. And I was still just severely depressed after this record. But I mean, yeah, it was, I mean, you know, you take your own life experience. If this is the thing that is on your mind constantly, like he basically was saying, like, I used these writing sessions and the recording sessions almost as like an escape. I look forward to them. That's like the only thing I had really going at the time. So yeah, you just kind of channel all of the things you are feeling. And he certainly did that, I think.
He did the thing that everyone says art is for. He's like, you like put your feelings into it so you can get all your emotions out, but it didn't.
It didn't.
He still,
It's, you know, we'll never know exactly what he said because most of the lyrics are obscured on this album. And like, also Jake sounds like Jake. And, you know, even following a lyric sheet until the many later records they've done is pretty incomprehensible. Especially this one where the lyrics are just kind of thrown on the album.
I mean, there's like full on like poems that definitely aren't on the fucking, there's no way in hell the lyric sheet for Concubine, there's no way in fuck that's on there.
It made me feel good to know that I'm not just a moron, because I've been listening to this record for about 20 years now, and I didn't know what the fuck he was saying, and I tried one time to like, darklyrics.com or whatever fucking lyric thing used to exist on the internet before Genius. I was like, I'm gonna try to read along to these lyrics, and like I was just like, I guess I'm just stupid, but it turns out that you're not supposed to know what they didn't want you to know what he's saying.
I love that idea. Hey, don't even try to decipher this. You're never gonna know. Great. The brain shut off.
Like, knowing the album is very geared towards the synonymous artwork, right? Like that's a reflection of what's there. And there is very much an animalistic kind of emotional outburst all over the record. That's purely what it is. It's 45 minutes of just pure emotion, aggressive self-hatred, probably a little bit, I would assume, because I'm speaking for all of us there. I'm sure we've all dealt with that from time to time. You know, sadness, the whole nine. As Swindle said, the things you're supposed to put into art that you're always told that you're supposed to put into art, and then you get knuckleheads like us that are like, oh, he's talking about this, or, you know, whatever it may be. You don't want to be too literal when it comes to these things, right? You want to be just interesting enough that it doesn't feel like you're being spoon fed. And I think Jake has always done a really good job with keeping things very close to the vest, but also still emotionally reaching all those other things that everybody can relate to, or people that are in these similar mindsets can relate to.
I mean, if with the mention of art, maybe we can just jump ahead to that really quick. I mean, like Dylan mentioned, it's ingrained in hardcore and punk culture at this point. The label was certainly not pleased with it, especially the lyrical thing. Like, there's really no discernible lyrics. You've scattered them all within the artwork. The cover itself doesn't have a name or a title on it. So they were just not happy. But I mean, I come to find that Jacob Bannon, credited obviously with the artwork, he's done practically all the band's artwork at this point, wasn't maybe even meant to do it at first. It was a friend of the band, designer Derek Hess. He thought maybe he was like so immersed in the actual writing and construction of the music on the album, they thought he might have to hey, I have a friend who can probably put this together, but that was not the case.
The way he captured all this art was pretty interesting to me also, as like a person that doesn't really do visual art. But he would sketch out all the ideas on like a sketchbook or something, and as much technology as he could use in 2000 or 2001 or whatever, he would scan his sketches on into some Photoshop or Photoshop style thing, and kind of digitize the image. And then once he digitized the image, he would use print it out, I guess, and then paint it with acrylic and ink and spray paint. And then once he for all the images of the booklet, once they were dry and finished, he would then put the typography onto the paintings or whatever after that.
He doesn't even have the original, apparently.
That's
he's
wild.
I don't know where the fuck. I don't keep a lot of the originals, is what he said. So I wonder if it's somewhere out there, maybe, or in a dumpster.
There's somebody on eBay or one of those resale sites just losing their fucking mind at that knowledge, just knowing who knows who's got the original. Can't buy it.
Yeah. We did come to find years later, this was obviously big news when the model herself, Audrey Marnay, came forward, discovering years later that she had been, basically the, iconic figure of hardcore music for the past 20 or so years. Her face, which she originally posed for on a May 2001 Italian Marie Claire cover. Oh,
Marie Calendar.
Marie Calendar, yeah. Was part of the artwork that was kind of diced up and collaged onto the canvas. So nothing ever came of it, I don't think. So
the shirts are still there. They still reprint them in different colors and all sorts of stuff.
Converge the towel. Converge the video game.
Yeah. I mean, I've got the record sitting right over here to my right. And, it is funny to think about, though. They've released live versions where I think they played it at Roadburn one year in total. That's where the whole Blood Moon grouping kind of came together. And I will say, in those modern repressings of that live bit, the artwork is changed just a little bit. The face is a little bit different. And this could just be me putting too much shit together and armchair quarterbacking, but they haven't repressed Jane Doe in quite some time.
Yeah.
I think mine might be one of the last pressings they did. But they haven't repressed it in 10 years or so. And that could very well be the cause. I don't know, but I mean, you can still find anything with the artwork on it. And imagine, I'm sure the guys were on tour and we're just Jake was just all right, this is a magazine. I could do something with this. Yeah. Not a thought. Cause it's 2000, 2001. This stuff's never going to come back to no one's ever going to notice. She'll never see it. We're making a hardcore record that'll sell 4 copies.
Right.
Sure, Tad Doyle, use this photo in the
Let's put Clinton with a joint.
Yeah. No, this will be good, Tad. Go ahead.
And as we mentioned before, they like every week they thought they were going to break up. So Jake was probably like, "We'll be done after this anyway. Like nobody's gonna fucking care about this record." This record not only was a big thing for the band, like just this being the first record for all four of these people to work, or I guess technically five of these people to work together, and like the first record that they kind of hash out their own sound as a band, but it also is very much like the first big record that Kurt Ballou would do in God City Studios. Like he not only did he use this as a way to like launch the band forward, but he was trying to use it as a way to launch his like recording engineering forward too. They were record this record in like 3 different studios. Kurt would record all or most of his guitar tracks in God City Studios in like varying times. There was an interview where he said like there's a reason there are multiple guitar sounds on this record. Like different songs sound different, and it's because we only got to record like 1 or 2 songs at a time. Like I think he said Ben Kohler was literally doing his college finals during the time they're recording Jane Doe. So Ben would be like, I have 2 hours. What can we do in 2 hours? So they would sit up and record like 2 songs and then not be able to get back together until like 2 days later or something like that. I guess not 13 consecutive days, but over 13 days, they would record Jane Doe with the budget of $11,000. They would use producer Matt Ellard. I don't know, like
Producer.
Not a producer. Yeah, he produced the record, but not like in a way that producer is used a lot of the time in like the record business. But this was kind of the first album that sounds like this that Matthew Ellard would work on. And in an interview that I watched, the College of Berkeley or whatever, Matthew like literally had no idea how this was supposed to sound, and when they would finish a take, he would look at the band and be like, "Was that good? Like, did y'all think that was good? Because I don't know what this is supposed to be like."
Yeah, I mean, his credits before then included like Tina Turner and Dave Lynch, and he'd worked with like a few like indie rock bands, I guess like Morphine, the Lemonheads. Some of other credits are like Lita Ford and like Motorhead prior to this. Actually, that Billy Bragg and maybe that Wilco record, those
Right.
collaborations,
Yeah.
but nothing as fucking abrasive as this shit.
So it is funny because in that same Berkeley interview, what I liked is something Kurt said, whereas, well, we didn't want a producer or an engineer that was used to recording this type of music. We wanted somebody that was just a good, engineer, right? We didn't want it to sound like the best version of this type of music. We wanted it to sound like a good record. And then Matt had a really great, or Matthew, I'm sorry, I don't know if you prefer to go by Matt, had a really good response, which was, I just produced it like a really good rock record. I just want it to sound like a great rock record. It is funny to think about this because these obviously Converge is a Massachusetts-based band, but he worked with Overcast, which is Massachusetts-based band, pre-Shadows Fall, pre-Killswitch Engage, like early metalcore band. So it's probably not rare that happened. There's probably some sort of tie in there as well with some friends and so on and so forth in local scenes. I think the production on this is really well, but like production in quotations, as Swindle said, like we know who produced this record.
Yeah.
We know who did that. I mean, the Foot Story is one of my favorite things about the production into this album. It's like to imagine how fucking difficult that is. And the production sounds great. I mean, as crazy loud as it's mixed, it still sounds great. Like it doesn't sound dated. It almost sounds in a very weird way so over polished in certain spots. Tones, signals, like it sounds very modern. It sounds like something a major label would have had their hands on a little bit with how pristine. And that's just engineering and the whole nine. And just to know that some of it was still like, this was still it was pre the industry standard being digital recording. This is an analog recording, and it's as loud as it could possibly be. Like seeing the rundown of what they were spending on the record, and it's an $11,000 budget, and even like seeing that, I went, that's not much, but it's more than I thought it was going to be. And then knowing what recording budgets are now, especially for bands of this size, are probably closer to 3 to 5, I would say. Maybe not to Converge levels. Like that band probably does pretty well with the recording budget, I would assume. But just to see being able to make all of those moves, do everything with just 11 grand and one guy's, sorting through his production and figuring out what he's going to do and to help push his own name. And then you've got this guy who's never done anything as obnoxiously aggressive as this.
Yeah.
Right.
They so I recorded it in 3 studios, mixed it in 2. Q Division being the one bigger one, more the nicer studio, I guess, because they even talking about like, before they had really done all of their own records, they recorded with like Steve Austin in like a basement, basically on some of the prior stuff. But the big record that was always there as far as like the Q Division that came up was the Pixie Surfer Rosa. I think they said they recorded here first. They got some of the like drum stuff out of the way just so they would have more time to record it, like God City and Fort Apache. But Mr. James Taylor, the antagonist of our record, of our story. It's so funny. I mean, like, here you are. There's a studio with 2 rooms. You're a little band. This is the most money you've ever seen in your life. And you get the big room. And fucking James Taylor comes kicking the door down with his entourage, they said. Hey, yeah, he's got more money. You guys are going to the small room, actually. And then I even heard too. So yeah, essentially James Taylor's recording next door at the same time Converge is recording. And then, they had to move into the smaller room, which I guess they said helped them in the long run. It had like maybe a brighter sound or something like that in the B room. But even then he's still, like they'd send a guy over like, hey, like Mr. Taylor's working next door.
Can you guys turn it down? He fucking big leagued him. James Taylor big league Converge. The story's very reminiscent, and the band is slipping me, and maybe Austin remembers this, but there was a point in time where Aerosmith was recording in this big studio and another band was recording in like Studio B. And the band that was in Studio B was pushing the fucking like speakers and everything just as loud as possible. So at certain points, and I think it's on Aerosmith's Big Ones album, or Pump or one of those like early 90s ones, you can hear very little bits of guitar on that album, apparently, of that, because the studio mics were picking it up.
Oh my God.
So it makes me think, could you imagine whatever James Taylor record that is that has all this money and major label push, and there's like, you can hear like Phoenix and Flame just blaring in the background.
It's October Road. So they said it in something that I watched. But yeah, they had booked time in Studio A at a discounted rate because they were a smaller band. And then James Taylor comes in and says, but I'll pay you more if you give me the big room. So I don't know, I don't know if they were given Converge. When I say I don't know if Converge was given warning before they were kicked out, but some interviews made it seem like they knew they were going to be moved, so they took the time to like record some of the slower, bigger songs in the bigger room because it would give like more space for like all the sound to bounce off the walls and give those songs more room to breathe. And all the really fast ones they recorded in the small room, so somehow they were able to make use of the space they were given.
The other studio, I thought it was interesting too, Fort Apache, where they like did all the vocals, and he's like, Jacob talks about being like on the stage, like a live stage, and he was like recording with the lights off, and he was just able to go fucking like feral, essentially, I believe was the word used as well, which, you know, we have always described Jacob as. You know, whether you think it might work or not, I feel like it did.
There were some Gollum-esque movements going on during that fucking recording. You know good and well. And also, like, from that Berkeley interview, hearing that he's just got an SM57 shoved in his fucking face the entire time. Like,
yeah.
That's the mic Austin's recording with right now, right? Sure, SM57, or is that an SMB?
No, I think that's this is a 7B.
Okay, so the SM57 is the live mic then.
Right, yeah.
But it's funny to think like he's alone. It's not an ISO box or anything like that, which is pretty typical. It's like, here's a room, here's a stage, have at it, bud. But I hate to go back to this, but I can't just. It's in my head that like Kurt Ballou has been getting residuals possibly for like the smallest amount of money for almost 25 years, and he's probably trying to figure out what he's getting it for, and it's for that James Taylor fucking record. And because there's a small bit of his music on it, it's like a couple notes from like, you know, Hell to Pay or Fault and Fracture on there, and it's like, what is this for? All right, put it with the rest of them.
Yeah, did they say Hell to Pay was the only song recorded track live with the full band, right?
And it sounds it.
Yeah. Thing to note about the Fort Apache, like you said, there's a stage there. The interesting thing about that studio is the reason there is a stage there is because typically when bands are recording there, it is like maybe modernly in modern day, it would be something like an audio tree. Like a full band is going there to record like a live session, maybe like an MTV acoustic thing, like, and there is usually was an audience sitting with the people recording. So it's just Jake Bannon with all the lights off in a big room on a stage with a live mic. And an interesting thing about this microphone that he's using to record vocals that Kurt specifically noted was because it's like a unidirectional microphone. Since Jake is like free moving about, if he moves the microphone slightly, then like it can't pick up his voice in the same way. Like, so that might be why some of his vocals like sound different, because he's moving around, he's moving the microphone around. And if you've seen Converge play live, even still to this day, like Jake is running from one side of the stage to the other. Like he is not standing still.
It just just back and forth. Like I just B-roll of that recording process had to be something interesting. You know, it's always really like, I've heard it referred to as sterile when it comes to the recording process, but to me it's always been very like kind of stepping on your own balls to an extent. It's like
Mr.
someone's
Belvedere.
watching. Yeah. Someone's watching you do one of the most intimate things you could possibly do. So, because you're just there, like, especially if you're singing, you're there. Everyone can hear everything. They can hear a crack. They can hear a nuance. They can hear anything. If you're recording, they can hear strings. Like, they can hear you fuck up. But like, you just feel so naked. And just knowing I'm alone in a room on this stage with a mic, and they're just watching me through the fucking window. And I'm belting out arguably probably the most emotionally distressing things that I've ever written to paper. And I have to sit with Kurt probably going like, hey man, you can do another take of that. I'm on the ground. I wet myself. You got one more in you, man.
Two more kind of interesting things to note is, in addition to Matthew Ellard being producer, he someday gets to go to God City Studios and act as the button presser, because as Dylan kind of referenced, for Kurt's recording at the studio, he is recording himself, and he's recording to 2-inch tape, not like now where you're using Reaper where you just like click the record button and you can go. He is literally hitting like the record button, the stop button. He's hitting all these buttons with his fingers while he's trying to play fucking Concubine or whatever song. So he is sitting barefooted at his console, hitting the buttons with his toes, trying to do punch-ins on guitar, and this tape machine is like making crack noises when you hit the pause button, so you gotta like wait until the end of the song to hit the stop button. And these songs are 10 million miles an hour, so someday he gets Matthew Ellard into the studio to actually like physically help him make his job easier.
Why's your board stink, Kurt? You got me here to help you, and this thing reeks.
And the last thing that I am noting is the mastering is done by our good friend Alan Douches.
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 Douches?
Alan Douches, I said, and nothing else.
Always and forever, we have said. Don't look back.
I love the take from Alan, and I know I probably just stole your thunder on this one, but him even back then was like, I want this to be like the loudest thing I've ever done. And even today, he's like, that's the loudest record I've ever done. 6 years later.
He still gets asked about it. That was like one of the things, Kurt says, like, this is pretty cool that like, he'll be with bands or whatever and is like, like West Side or whatever. And they ask him like how he did it. And like to this day, and Alan, the king, forever king.
It's the Men in Black moment where Tommy Lee Jones says, hey, the red button? Never press the red button. That's the Converge button, right? Like just everything's just
mastered in a day, maybe less than a day.
Wild.
And all faders on 10.
Yeah. But you gotta stand there with your hands on the faders the whole time, because again, it was an analog process, not digital. So you gotta make sure the faders stay up. Tape them in one spot, don't move.
Well, talked about the production. We talked about the artwork. We talked about a whole other bunch of stuff. Shall we do it? Shall we get into the record?
Let's do it. Just as they do. They start with Concubine. Like I said, for me, this is an all-time fucking record opening. One of the best that I can think of. And Converge loves to fucking do this. They will just rip right into a record.
Mm-hmm.
Goddamn.
False sense of security.
Is it?
Yeah, kind of. Some poor bastard put this on for the first time, and it's like, oh, it's going to start this way based off the album artwork. And nope, you just get this intense dissonant intro just immediately, and one of the craziest drum performance of a debut drum performance from somebody. Like the drums all over this record are off the fucking wall. And it's chaos. It sounds like a fucking death grind track, to be honest, with the way the snares mixed, the kind of just consistent blasting that Ben is doing, and then you've got Jake just doing what he does best.
Stay gold.
Yeah, on repeat. Or at least that's what I think of it. But yeah, I mean, Dylan's right. I mean, you get those like few seconds of just like, huh, what? And then bam, everything. I just imagine that needle being like all the way in the fucking red. Like everything is just like wild. And I guess, another thing that this band does well and has done well on previous releases that we've talked about is like their changes in, speed. Because it does go from like just absolute insane chaos and fury, and then they'll like switch it up into like heavy grooves, and their changes in the tempo is definitely very successful here for sure, especially on this track. I mean, with it being like less than 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
those like harmonic runs that they're not harmonic runs, but those little kind of scale runs that they're doing throughout the track are interesting because they're dissonant. Like, and it's a little bit different than maybe what you got with the prior two records, where those are very much in the vein of like kind of thirds, like minor thirds, where it's or not minor thirds, minor fifths, where it's a kind of that Slayer thing, the kind of Slayer harmonies that are on, where this is just pure like, fuck it, let's see if it sticks. And it's just dissonant, it's gnarly. It's bonkers. There's everything that would have been in a prior Converge track on the 2 prior releases is on this with so much more.
Speaking of harmonics, the fucking like 3-4, the second part of the song after the blistering 1,000 miles an hour, nasty fucking harmonics. I fucking love that. And it's kind of funny that you thought it was death grind-esque, because when I listened to it today, I was like, this kind of reminds me a little bit of Power Violence, in that it's like so fucking fast, and then at the end of the song for like 3 seconds there's just the slowest breakdown, and then the song's over.
With it everything being loud and like so, fast, there is like, kind of what Dylan's talking about with the harmonics and some of these like noodlier parts. There's still like, you can hear the dictation and like some of the melody in these songs still. So it came through great. They recorded it well, and it doesn't feel like it just massive shit. It could. I mean, it easily could.
Right?
Be.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it could definitely sound like a tool chest being pushed down a flight of stairs with the type of music these guys are writing. I mean, you go back to the 2 prior releases, 2 full lengths, and there are some parts on those songs that do sound like, if the production is even slightly off or the timing's off, like it just all falls apart. I've used this analogy a lot, but it's kind of the train running off the tracks situation where they just pull it right back in. But everything on here just sounds firmly set. Like they knew exactly what they were doing. And what a way to start off this fucking record.
And the next song, Fault and Fracture. Concubine goes right into it, and it doesn't fucking slow down at all. These 2 songs just bleed right into each other. It's kind of like a We Are the Champions. It's the Queen thing, where the songs are always played back to back.
I've seen Converge one time, and it was on the Dark Horse. On the Axe to Fall touring cycle, and they opened with Concubine straight into Fault and Fracture. Like that was the opening. Like 8 years later, like that was it. Those were the opening. Kids were moshing as the like dissonant intro of the prior of Concubine started, and by the time Fault and Fracture, like kids were having to like cinch up their arms and like tape their legs up and shit. And then they continued to go forth with it. Like this track has these, and Swindle, you probably caught it, but Ben's drumming, which we'll continue to talk about in the early portion of the song, like not terribly long after, there's some weird dance beats going on in there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like quick, like, and then they're gone. Like it's just boom, and then out of there.
He flams in the middle of the dance beat, and I'm just like, how are you getting your hands in all these places at once?
I got 2 hours, motherfucker.
They're actually Matthew Ellard in the Berkeley interview, he said he always called Concubine the cymbal catch song, because while they were recording drums, Kurt Blue would have to stand in front of the drum set and catch the cymbal, because like Kohler didn't have enough arms to do like one cymbal catch.
Even just them working together on that, I mean, the communication between Ben and just what Kurt is doing is so crazy, with some of the fills and like the tom little rolls and everything. Yeah, his playing on here is especially in like that, I guess, the bridge part of this song.
Oh yeah,
pretty fucking bonkers shit for sure.
I really love the fucking the like slow down staccato, like chugging the ba 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 da la. I fucking love that part of this song.
That's like that kind of old school Converge thing, right? That's the little bit that you get on the record. It's tastefully done. It's not overdone. And between some of these like post-rock style chords that are used by Kurt around I'll call it the bridge, for lack of a better word, you get a little bit more of that. I mean, there were elements of that on the prior 2 albums, but you get more of that on here, and it fits a little bit better. Just with these 2 opening tracks, it fits a little bit more in the scope of what's going on with these extremely chaotic, skronky, dissonant songs that are kicking off. And Swindle said it, the two tracks kind of blend into each other. They could essentially be the same track. Like one's kind of I've seen other bands just like, hey, that's the intro track into this track kind of thing. And it's just more of what that first track did. It's just, this has so much more to it.
That's fair. And, these, you definitely have to sandwich these together. I will say the rest of the record it's so forward moving and everything just feeds one into the other anyway. Like, yeah, maybe they're not all meant to be played in a set together. Like those two are just, you kind of have to play one with the other, but everything kind of like bleeds into the next track for sure. And we do get a couple songs here with some moments to breathe after those just two fucking gauntlet, like moving, tempo tracks, but Distance and Meaning, you kind of get like a soloed out, like dissonant guitar chords. There's some noise, and I love the drums in this part as well. Fucking rad.
The drums on this song are fucking insane. Like Concubine and even Fault and Fracture to like an extent, those drums are like, they are performed well. He's a fucking machine. It's crazy that he can do it, but the parts themselves are kind of like, they're more straightforward.
They're more atypical for that type of music for sure.
It makes complete sense. The drum, I can't imagine a different drum part than like the parts that are in Concubine, but like all of the drum parts in Distance and Meaning are so fucking creative. Like they don't even make sense to me. I think like that, like Drumeo does that thing where they like play a song for a drummer without the drum track. If you played this song for any drummer, you would never fucking get these drum parts. Like the ones in this song are fucking crazy.
Play it for Stuart Copeland. I will say that what I really enjoy about this song in particular is the interesting kind of dynamic choices they made with how the song is impacted. The bass drops out in the verses. There's no bass in the verse. So when the pre-chorus or choruses kick in, it's massive, it's big, it's boomy. And that would be my one slight maybe on the record, is that the bass doesn't cut through a lot. It's big. You hear the fundamental, but you don't hear the nuance. Like you don't hear the precision. And then Nate has gone on to say that his bass sound wasn't as really dialed in for this record in the past interviews. And obviously you hear him much more in later, and even some later songs on the album, he's a little bit more dialed in and you can hear him cut through. But it works with the fundamental, especially with how large those kind of hooky parts of this song sound. This is the first instance of the record where you get more of kind of Jake's spoken shrieking, like waily kind of vocals, which are, Jake Bannon 101. And you get some doom shit on this track too.
Yeah, the single note riff at single note riff at the end. Fucking love that riff. What a riff. And then we got Hell to Pay.
Oh, one of my favorites.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is another kind of breather, but I love maybe like we were talking about that like open-ish tuning or whatever. It's kind of got like a twang to it. I almost think of it as like if they wrote their own version of like a blues stomp kind of jam, like maybe this is how it would sound or something. But and speaking of Nate as well, I mean, you get that filthy bass tone kicking through. If it was hard to hear him before, you're not going to miss him on this track for sure.
What I do like, and I'm glad you mentioned this twangy guitar, because there's parts on this track that I mentioned. It's like this verbed out, almost. There's some vibrato being used at the back portion of the song that almost gives it that surf rock kind of guitar sound. But it's kind of that power groove that hits in the verses, that bump, bump, bump kind of part. It's very Pantera, like blues-esque kind of just big, bulbousy kind of sounding things. And it fits in this song because it's such a big sounding song. It fits. Every aspect just feels organic. But it's still, you hear it mixed and it does sound like every amp is pushed to like 10. It's almost like the story behind recording Breed on Nevermind. Like they just dialed everything out. and it's just massive sounding, but a great let me up, but not the negative way. Just a little bit of air to breathe without it seeming like it's pandering to anybody. It definitely seems like Converge is still riding for Converge, but you get maybe a sampling of what's to come with the band later on in its career.
Yeah, I can definitely see some of the Axe to Fall songs sounding like this, like the Worms Will Feast or whatever. The song only has like 2 fucking parts. When it starts off like super creepy, there's kind of like a chorus, but then when it gets big at the end, it's just a big version of the creepy riff of the creepy guitar riff. And it is kind of there's definitely room to breathe, but it is not in a way that makes you feel good, because this the guitar runs during the chorus while the bass is like hammering the groove. The guitar runs are eerie. It does not sound like a fun time.
It sounds like seasick. It's like this swirling kind of thing going on with it. Very disorienting.
And then in fucking stark contrast with the room that you get to breathe and hell to pay, they suck it all back out of the fucking room with Homewrecker, because they are back to 1,000 miles an hour.
This is the most straightforward song on the record.
Yes. Yep.
Which I love. It is like just, die in the wool like punk track. And there's not really like a lot of the crazy arrangement chaos that Kurt is typically known for, but it's a lot of fun. I fucking love this track. The vocals still sound fucking unhinged. The drums are great. I think Ben's using a fucking cowbell at certain points.
He
on
is
the song.
Right. Yes, he is.
He definitely is. I kind of had the same feeling. It kind of feels like their token rock track in a weird way. Like first chorus, verse, standard structure. But when you've got a song like this with the same intent that this song does on an album like this, it works because it still doesn't seem like it's disingenuous, right? It still feels like, oh yeah, we just wanted to write a rad track. It's funny you got a punk feel on it. I got Entombed Wolverine Blues.
Oh, sure.
Like as soon as I heard that opening riff, I was like, okay. I went, this is that kind of death and roll kind of thing.
That's fair. I feel like that, both of those in their own way are coming from a similar place.
Yeah.
But this is fun. It's a good track. It's like you said, it could be the token, whatever. Like it could be much dumber, but I feel like it's still aggressive and violent. It gets the job done, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
There are bands that have tried the same format in an album as aggressive as that band could put out that have failed tragically. And I'm a fan of those bands, and I won't mention them. But there are so many bands that are influenced by this band that have attempted to do the same thing, and it just doesn't quite hit the mark. And that's the credit to what this record is and what this band was at that point in time.
The next song is the Broken Vow. There is a fucking tap riff that I love in this song. Fucking love that tap riff.
Yeah, I almost thought like this song starts similarly enough to the previous track, but then it gets like kind of proggy, like some of those hammer
that off kilter haunting shit.
I feel like maybe reserved is the wrong word, but Ben is like, he just knows exactly where to play and when to play, and it's just very like his feel is crazy for a song like this. I thought, I just was listening to him, I'm like, man, he is just, I feel like he creates enough space in between what Kurt is playing on this track where he could go and really overdo it, but he doesn't.
There's definitely some stoner rock kind of qualities to this, which leads into Nate's band that he's still currently in, I believe, Doom Riders, right? Adds that kind of like very organic kind of pounding rock and roll, like Motorhead-esque stuff. And to what Austin said about Ben's drum placement, like I really thought the snare placement on this entire song was pretty interesting. I'm a sucker for off-time snare, like putting a lot more space in between. It's still in 4, but like the snare just hits at different points, and I fucking love everything about that. But it is it is interesting to note that the two songs that Nate wrote they're not completely different from the scope of what Converge has written and is writing on this record and is playing on this record, but it still sounds slightly different than a Kurt Ballou written song, right? It has this kind of more, there's a great rigidity to them both that I like, that I got from it. And the Broken Vow is a great representation of that.
Part that I really love about this, because it is very much not on the rest of the record, is there's like near the end, there's a break where Kurt is just chugging like the same note. And then he just keeps chugging that note until the end of the fucking song. So there's a song on this album where like a third of the song, Kurt's just playing one fucking note. And that for the rest of this album, like that sticks out like a sore thumb. Like no, he's not on the same note for any part of any of the rest of the songs.
Imagine that writing process.
Yeah.
Imagine that recording process. Hey man, just play one note. What?
Kill him with repetition. And then, I mean, even with that chuggy part, or at least somewhat of some parts of it, they're like the gang vocal part, because you have like three special guests that are on this as well. I feel like we should mention. You have Kevin Baker, the vocalist of the Hope Conspiracy, another Boston hardcore band. Of course, Death Wish co-founder, co-operator Trey McCarthy as well. And then Caleb Schofield, who is the bassist and vocalist, the late bassist and vocalist of Caven, who is credited as Secret C because the band, I guess, was under contract through RCA at the time before the release of like their only major label release. But yeah, he had to maybe, I don't know if they thought they were going to have a problem, but they just wanted to make sure, I guess, that they weren't going to run into any issues.
That's a big part in that song. That vocal part is big.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll take my love to the grave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like the only thing I can understand in the whole goddamn album.
Very Hetfield on the first Danzig record. He's buried in there. You can hear him, just some of the nuance, and he's not credited on the record at all because Elektra was like, nope, not with us.
And then we got Bitter and Then Some. And for all that time that Kurt spent playing the same note at the end of the last song, he made up for all those notes at the beginning of this song because he played lots of them. He was.
This is the, we talk about Slayer being like an influence on some of those other ones.
Yeah.
This is like a classic Circle Pit Slayer opening for me.
Yeah.
This is that early metalcore kind of sound.
Yep.
This is it. Like Slayer triplet rhythms, it's all there. It's almost like there's some pure hardcore parts in the middle of it, just straight like Youth Crew, kind of like early first or second wave hardcore in there. The kind of variation of the opening riff, that motif that plays throughout the song is really good. Just a nasty track.
I think I wrote Hatebreed breakdown with a phaser.
I was about to say he used a phaser at the end of the fucking song.
He sure fucking did.
It was weird.
I hate to backtrack, but we haven't really talked about effects and stuff on this album, which Kurt's prone to use it, but on Distance and Meaning, there's Moog swirls at the beginning of it, and I forgot to fucking mention it.
Maybe I couldn't figure out. I kind of guessed maybe where it might be, but apparently there's theremin on this record as well. We still got to make that happen, Swindle. It'll happen one day. We get that theremin fucking power violence band going. It's really solid our music on hit clips.
TM. We're fucking trademarking that. Don't steal our ideas.
Don't steal our idea. That's our idea.
Especially anyone that went to Western that we maybe don't like anyway. Don't take our ideas. We did. Austin posted about it on the internet first.
That's right. TM. I can't delete my Facebook just because of that, probably. All right. Anyway, this is a good song.
Yeah. Then were they following up with Heaven in Her Arms? Fucking pull-off riff. Pull-offs at 1,000 miles an hour, I wrote.
A lot of them.
We got this album has places to be. It ain't got time to be sitting around lollygagging. We just are cooking. like for, you know, like you see an album with like 12 tracks, you think like, oh, okay, let's see. But it's 45 minutes. It's a fucking breeze to get through this shit, man. This is a great sequenced album.
This whole track in particular is just chill inducing to me. Definitely knowing what this track was kind of initially supposed to be. And this is the first time you hear the bass really cut through. Like you really hear it because it's that great. Yep, the bass and drum break. And I think it attributes to with, like I mentioned before, his tone is so distorted it doesn't allow room to kind of cut through. Which that's a big part of Converge is like Nate's bass tone is pretty well cutting throughout the rest of the band's catalog. The drum break, you have a great use of harmonics in the track. You have this, I noted this great like dramatic slowdown before this magnificent mosh part at the back end of the song. And it's just fucking great. Just another monstrous track on this album. You know, I don't think we've gone through a record in quite some time where we went, every one of these songs fits and doesn't necessarily need trimming.
I will say this song does have like some great variety. I mean, with the hammer and pull off stuff that he's known for, there's a part maybe in the middle that's like this kind of very dissonant. It almost kind of, if it were just slightly altered, I could see it going into like almost black metal territory, and it kind of made me think of like more modern sounding bands like Frail Body and like Agriculture. I could see maybe where like Oathbreaker would take influence on this track. Mm-hmm. And then, as Dylan kind of mentioned, to me, the thing that the player that came to mind right out of the gate was like a Matt Pike High on Fire like breakdown kind of riff for the song
at the end.
At the end of the track.
Yep. The dirgy fucking ending.
I love the like octave chord harmonies that Kurt is playing in that big ass fucking breakdown at the end. But we get that big ending of Heaven in Her Arms, and that leads us pretty well into Phoenix in Flight, which is a slower song all the way through. A lot of space, lot of space to breathe.
Yeah.
At this point of the album, I think I'm glad that I don't know what Jake is saying, because I get a chance to breathe. Like, not knowing what he's saying gives me a chance to breathe, but I'm sure what he's saying is devastating.
This one's hard to listen to. Not because it's a bad song and it just evokes these really unpleasant emotions, which we were speaking earlier today about, certain forms of music aren't supposed to make you feel good. But it's cathartic to listen to those things that don't make you feel good. And I think this is one of those tracks that this band is known for. I mean, you pick out any record in their catalog and there's one or two of those on there. I got huge Neurosis vibes on the opening of this track. There's some wah filtered in throughout there. It's like half cocked and you can just kind of hear it. A minute and a half in, there's this kind of Deftones-esque thing going on with chord voicings that are going on in there. Those big lush chords that Kurt's known to use. And the only way I could compare some of Jake's vocal choices on here was it's as close to what my brain would think Jake Bannon doing a Robert Smith would be. Like very Cure-esque in performance. And we know like the Wear Your Wounds project he did many years later has a lot of those nuanced influences to it. And this is a hard track to listen to. I'll just leave it there. It's not bad by any means, but it is, man, I was listening to the last 4 tracks of this record, like on my couch, and was like sinking into the couch and just like staring into space going, oh no, there's so much that's coming back.
I will say it's maybe important to note, I didn't bring it up earlier, that maybe like 6 or so years earlier, Jacob and another artist by the name of Ryan Parker started this project, more experimental, called Super Machiner. And so they had released their debut record maybe like in a year prior, but he said a lot of the stuff that ultimately ended up on Jane Doe was kind of geared towards that experimental project, but it ended up fitting a little bit more. So he means like there's this little quote from Exclaim and from a 2016 article where Jacob says, much of Jane Doe comes from the Super Machiner stuff I was doing. The actual song Jane Doe and also Phoenix in Flight were initially intended for the new Super Machiner album, but it made sense for Converge to play them. It fit. I have not listened to that record. I know Kurt produced it and performs on it, but that, what almost was, almost didn't end up on, like this fucking record. It's kind of weird.
Talking about that, talking about the part with the wah in the song, it doesn't remind me of the genre sludge, but it just like the thickness of that part with the wah makes me think of Muck, the Pokemon. It just like makes me picture someone just like wading through sludge or something. And at the end, once it's like kind of gotten bigger, like the whole song is kind of like gotten very big, there's a really great fucking guitar, like kind of like screaming guitar overlay a little bit. I love that part.
I forgot to mention this because I got tied up in the track, but there's some interesting bass stuff going on once the track gets bigger. It seems like he's slowly sliding up and down the neck kind of rhythmically on the lowest string to give this weird kind of impactful tonality to it.
Then we go to a song that I'm not sure belongs on this podcast because there are no riffs. This song is just drums and just screaming vocals, and they really do both of those things. They fucking drum fast as fuck, and they really scream.
Phoenix in Flames. It is jarring as shit. Right out to go from Phoenix in Flight, and then just like even earlier we were talking about like like a sense of comfort, I guess, to go from that song and then just break right into it. I think I want to say there is like a joke that Ben said where like Phoenix in Flames was fun too. I was half joking one day at the studio like we should just do a song that's drums and vocals only. I can't believe we actually put it on the record. I love that song. That's from the Decibel article.
I think there's like 6 drum sets on the track. Like there's 6 drum tracks. Like it's just all pounded into there, which adds to the kind of claustrophobic nature of the track. Yeah. My only notes were just fucking come on. And Jake sounds terrifying on this track. Yeah. Uninhibited by any other musical aspect because it's as close to not being music as it possibly could. And Ben is obviously, even at this young age, is demonstrating a masterclass on what to do when it comes to extreme music drumming. I think he's cut from the same cloth as like a Bron Daler, where it's just, what are you doing? You're not really repeating much of anything, but you're still somehow keeping everything afloat. And this is just essentially like, hey, fuck it, let's just put it on there.
Yeah, it sounds like you're going to hell, is what I wrote. Like you're just being dragged to hell. But yeah, it's cool. I like that it's there, but it's like what, the shortest song on the record, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Baloo or Kohler is doing all this while he's like thinking about his biology final or whatever. He's just like, I can't wait until my scores are posted on Blackboard.
Mitochondria.
Listen, he's having fun now. There's nothing better than seeing like a new Ben Kohler video of him playing like songs for the deaf like 3 times the speed.
Right, yeah.
Just relaxed.
Phoenix in Flames fucking crashes and burns. It just runs right into a wall, and then it goes into Thaw. And the thing I put is that Kurt Ballou just wanted to do math at the beginning of this song. He's just sitting doing math problems on his guitar.
Yeah,
tremendous opening riff.
I thought the coolest part with the guitar, I don't know if he's using, speaking of effects, like an octave or like a pitch pedal or something like that.
I thought Pog, one of those Pog pedals. Yeah, those like
it's in the it's like some of those melodic lead parts, and
Yep.
it's like it happens. There's like a lot of these like little descending like chromatic riffs that he's doing,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
it's like right in maybe like the left side of your ear,
Yep.
and it just has that distinct kind of like, I don't know, pitch pedal
Yep.
quality to it.
It definitely seems I forget what type of pedal the Pog is, but it's essentially you can adjust it and it'll either run it an octave up, an octave down, that sort of thing. Or what's happened?
Sorry, I just thought of it's
Pogs.
Alf in Pog form.
Thank you.
Sorry.
We were Lauren and I have been watching The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air a lot lately, and first 3 seasons are great. Last 3 aren't. But there's a point where Uncle Phil is sitting with the 4th child they have that only pops up sparingly, and they're just in this living room, and this hulking mass of a man is playing Pogs with this kid. And I'm just going, I just pointed, like grunted at the TV when it happened and went, ooh, ooh. And Lauren had to like decipher what I was getting at.
Remember Pog? It's just like The Simpsons. Every season, good as
Equally
the
as
last.
good. After the math part, there's like a fucking mosh part that starts sounding pretty straightforward, and then I feel like the rhythm changes slightly every time they go through the riff, and it's like a completely different riff at the end of it by how it began. There's like a part near the end that is kind of like a guitar, like it seems like a guitar solo where the bass is playing just the bass riff, and it's like in a Pantera song it would be the guitar solo,
Right.
but instead Belu's just making noise. He's just like whoosh. And also there's like a little there's like a tapping part at the end that like it's the opposite of catchy. Like it just doesn't make any harmonic sense. Like it sounds like it's just notes being played, but I fucking love that.
They threw the musical like song structure book and like, oh, this is what a minor scale is supposed to be out the fucking window.
Yeah.
Which is what I think a lot of music should be, is if it sounds good, play it. If it's major or minor, that's really all you need to know. Like, you know, it doesn't matter if it's Phrygian dominant or if it's, you know, harmonic minor or some sort of whole tone scale. Like you can use anything, just throw the shit at the wall. And if it sounds good and it feels good, play it, kind of thing. And this band's a pretty good bit of evidence, or pretty good gone. It's gone. This band is a pretty good representation of what that is.
Yeah.
And I think they've held to their guns really well on what that is. I'm sure like they've gotten somewhat musically educated throughout the years with just playing and playing and playing, but they're still writing shit that sounds good. I'm sure they still do it like even us 3 knuckleheads do. We're like, this sounds good. What if I do this next to it? Oh, this sounds good too. All right, that works.
A lot of this album, even though it is like insanely aggressive, it is also still very catchy. Like I can hum out like a lot of this album, and it's just crazy that it can be so off-putting and still be such an earworm. And I think like speaking to that, the last track, Jane Doe, essentially like 3 parts, 12 minutes, another huge song, lots of space. Even Ben Kohler is like playing down in this song for most of it, leaving lots of room, but it's a fucking catchy song.
I don't think it really changes much for like the first 7 minutes. Like
Correct.
it just kind of repeats like a couple of the parts, and then there's the guitar break at a certain point. But yeah, for the most part, it's just kind of like that meandering kind of riff and lick, and there's maybe some diverse choices in like vocal layering as far as like the screams and the like, you know, kind of unhinged cleaner parts, I guess. Yeah.
Haunting. The different layers that are in this track, the chimey guitars that kind of are layered on different sounding chiming guitars on left and right. There's this like 2.5 minutes in, there's this almost High on Fire, early Mastodon styled riffage going on. and it progresses. This is a track that kind of grows and grows. The parts alter slightly throughout the entire track, where maybe like a drum pattern is off a different way, or one note is moved slightly. It's remarkable that this track wasn't done live to tape, because it feels like it would be done live to tape. That kind of false ending that you get right at the 7 minute or so mark is just great. And it just continues on with these great dirgy parts that are going on, where it is just a chord kind of just chugged at a very slow mid-paced tempo going through it. And oof, what a fucking trek.
Yeah, and then they at the end they're just like smashing it out, and Jake is like fucking screaming, and like there's chords happening, but they got like the dissonant kind of panic chord plucked one note at a time, and it's big and loud and very full, and then it just is over.
Yeah, just fades out into the ether, never to be heard or seen from again. But yeah, 45 minutes and some change. Kind of moving forward. I mean, an important part that we've kind of danced around for a little bit. You essentially have Aaron Dalbec either leaving or being asked to leave the band. Maybe like, I think they said it was right at the tail end of the recording the record, right?
It seemed at least from the interviews that you took, that seemed like they were maybe a little closer to when it happened. It seemed like Aaron wasn't really happy with the decision. Like they maybe were like, listen, you kind of got to do this or you got to do that, when he maybe wanted to do both. I would kind of be interested in seeing like how Aaron thought about it now. I know that all those people are still friends. Like Bane, like all the people in Bane and all the people in Converge seem to like still be pretty fucking close. So I don't think that it's like super contentious. But I guess the people in Converge were like, we like maybe aren't going to be able to move forward with this band the way that we want to, while Aaron is doing Bane as hard as he is, because they had also just released a full length, and maybe were not getting opportunities because he was out on tour and he didn't get to write most of the record with them. So I think sometime pretty close to the first tour for this album, they like had the 4 people that are currently in the band like had a meeting and essentially decided that they were gonna like kind of kick Aaron Dalbec out of the band. And then the next day they met up with Aaron and said like, kind of like, you can choose the 2 bands, but we think that your heart is more in Bane than it is in Converge. We think that like musically that band lines up with your interest more than Converge does. So we're going to move on. We hope that Bane does great.
Yeah, he did play the release show. I think it was said to be Skatefest 2001 in Worcester, Massachusetts, September 8th, 2001.
Oof.
But that was essentially it. And they've been a 4-piece ever since.
Right. To this day. Even if sometimes they do have 10,000 people on their albums, there still are only 4 people on the band.
And man, do they fucking ever.
One other thing I thought was, I guess, kind of funny was, obviously there's a lot of mathy smart people in this band, and Kurt Ballou being one of them. He was laid off from his biomedical engineering job at Boston Scientific, which he stated was like the adult version of playing with Legos. But all for the better. He was able to focus on the band and his audio engineering career. So
going in after a tour, like, these guys rolled in late one night on like a Sunday, and he's like, I gotta go do this on a Monday. Like rolling in, having to like do whatever that entails, and just some other fellow like worker, scientist, whatever, just going, hey man, how have you been? You have a did you not get much sleep last night? Did you go to that party? Yeah, we'll say that. We'll say that.
Yeah, it's like any of us at our jobs. Yeah, what do you like? Nothing. What do you do? I've never done anything, actually.
I stare at the wall when I go home.
This is my life. I'm a husk.
I sit in a room with no painted walls, just sitting dead center of the fucking floor, and just wait till I get to like crawl out of my cocoon to do this all over again.
Another important ending to the band after this record is their time with Equal Vision Records. This would be their last record with them. As we mentioned, there was some kind of tension over the album artwork, which may have contributed to kind of the two entities parting ways, but it seems pretty amicable. They seem pretty happy to go forward on the next album, You Fail Me, with Epitaph Records, and they still release all the records with Epitaph.
Fucking 20 years later.
A little bit of touring. Obviously, 2001, the album was released on the 4th. They essentially tried to tour as the towers fell, as the 9/11 attacks happened. They were supposed to embark on a 2-week tour with Playing Enemy. I do believe they were able to do most of those dates, but I could be wrong. I know a band, Drowning Man, was also slated for this tour, but they, I guess, released a statement that they had to focus on writing, so they weren't on that tour at all. Maybe one of the more important tours of this kind of year, towards the end, maybe late November, much of December 2001, they went on tour with American Nightmare, touring the United States. There were various bands that were hopping in and out at that point: Thursday, Thrice, The Hope Conspiracy, Carry On, and Over My Dead Body.
I don't personally know much about the band Thursday other than their Thursday. But at this point in time, that band was kind of big. Like they were on, I think this was a Victory Records band at this point, and they were one of the first bands to sign from Victory to like a major label. They were a pretty big shit band at this point, but it is also funny to look back at Converge's touring at this period in time with who they are now in scope to where they were then, because now Converge can tour with whoever they want, sell out places left and right on short notice, whoever they got with them, even alone. They can sell out venues on their own. And the fact that they were essentially having to struggle to get tours and the reaction to this record when it came out, doing what it did, but it is funny to look back and think the tours were kind of like just pieced together here and there.
I think Colt, it's probably because of this tour, talking about Thursday. I think Kohler, you never really know because they wore masks, but I think Kohler was in United Nations, the band, with the vocalist of Thursday, which probably came to be because of this Converge tour.
So with that, I mean, we kind of mentioned some of the reviews for this record. The percentage fluctuated as the reviews went. He'd be like, yeah, 90% of the reviews were negative, or this and that, half of them. They did get some accolades from like different publications. I think Terrorizer put it in like album of the year, different records like that. They say they, started to get a lot of recognition from maybe people in their scene, maybe their contemporaries, maybe even some of the older folks that, started to respect the band. But, in retrospect, in the Decibel article, they ask if there's anything they change about it. Some people are like, no. Other people like Kurt maybe were like, I wouldn't make it as fucking loud as it was. Nate says there might be some parts here and there that he might have changed. But for the most part, I mean, it's, just a snapshot of where the band was at the time and coming together, and, you're being able to write fully or somewhat fully as a unit, with the exception of Aaron. But yeah, it's like the first kind of true step with all the other shit that happened, the band kind of almost breaking up. This is like your first like really cohesive, unit writing together.
Kurt says in interviews that this is the first record he is proud of from beginning to end. All the stuff before this record that Converge put out, he's like not proud of it. He's like, I would change this about this riff, this about this song, take this part out, add to like something he would change about every record up to this point. But this is the first record he is proud of from beginning to end.
I mean, you look at the band's live set and they don't play anything prior to this record. You know, if they do, it's a very rare occurrence. And they still play, I would say 3 to 4 songs from this track, or from 3 to 4 songs from this record. You know, Austin mentioned the Terrorizer review before, which is wild to think that Terrorizer gave him a 9.5, because Terrorizer, I used to buy Terrorizer. It's a purely extreme metal magazine, or it was, and it mainly catered to like the most underground you could get. Like the issue that I remember buying had Gaul from Gorgoroth on the cover, but it always came with a cool CD that had like sample tracks and new tracks and stuff. But to see that magazine give Converge a 9.5, it's like, okay, they recognize like this is one of the most extreme things we've fucking heard.
I bet that pissed some people off. I mean, maybe we missed the quote, but we wanted to write a hardcore record that would piss the kids off, and I'm sure Terrorites are doing that. Probably, you know, made a bunch of neckbeards like, what the hell is this?
That's not true with the V. TRVE.
What do y'all think about it? I mean, I love this record. I would not have been introduced to it without you guys. What do you think the legacy of this record is? And, you know, I mean, I think it's pretty well cemented, but maybe for yourselves, like, what's your take on it?
This was the first Converge record I heard. Concubine was the first Converge song that I heard, and I don't know if that is good or bad. It probably took me some time to recognize that it was even music, because I don't think I really liked blast beats up until that point, but it did something to my brain, and I fucking love this record. Ben Kohler on the drums is insane. This is like the first Converge record largely without Slayer riffs. It's the first Converge record where they sound like Converge and not like an amalgamation of their influences. And this is one of the best hardcore records like ever.
There are a handful of perfect records, and obviously that's all debatable to who's talking about it. But you look back at, like, I think Master of Puppets is considered a perfect record. I think Neurosis Silver and Blood to me is a perfect record. Mastodon's Leviathan is a perfect record. And I think even listening to it the handful of times I did in preparation, there's not a single moment on this record I would change. There's not a single note on this record I would change. There's not anything I would change on this record. It is, to me, a perfect record. I mean, and that says a lot, especially going back and what happened.
I had a bug. I'm sorry. There's a fucking gnat in here.
I thought you could hear dickhead going off.
It's the fucking gnat got in my eye.
Are you gonna add those sound effects to you swatting it there?
Maybe.
Wow.
There are very few perfect records in this world, and I think this falls into the category of being a perfect record from every aspect, because there are fans of every different genre of extreme music that can look at this and appreciate it. I mean, Decibel gave it like the best. It's their top album of like the early 2000s or something like that, like the top album of the decade. It got I believe they've even gone back and given it a perfect score out of their like decibel ratings and everything. I think there's only one other album that's gotten that. And it cements itself. It's a perfect record from every aspect: music, presentation, artwork, intent, and thematic, you know, everything about it is perfect. And I think it's going to go down as one of those records that is going to outlast everybody involved with it and just continue to go on and become this even further legendary album.
And before we wrap up this part of the episode, last week we had the fortune of Ben Kohler announcing that Converge has recorded 17 songs already, and they have more songs to record. So we are I don't know if it's this year, the end of this year or next year, but we will be getting new Converge very soon. Maybe a double album. Who fucking knows?
I wonder if they'll divvy it up on maybe smaller releases. Maybe we'll get Blood Orange 2 or whatever?
Yeah, maybe.
God.
Blood Moon.
Blood
No, I know.
Orange 2. This would be the first kind of standalone Converge album since 2017?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Is this The Dusk in Us?
Yeah. It's been a minute. It's been a long fucking time.
So keep your eyes peeled.
This is the portion of the show where we recommend what we've been listening to. My recommendation is Big Brave's OST. It was released April 25th through Thrill Jockey Records. Every year, Big Brave gives me a new thing to be thankful for. This year, it's been ambient horror. It just not ambient horror music, just the experience is horrifying. There's, I think I told y'all, track 7, Innominate 7, it features a person screaming, and they're not screaming words, and they're not screaming sounds. They're not like making syllables like Kurt Cobain did in Endless Nameless or Aneurysm. It's just screaming. And much of the album is instrumental. Robin, I think is the vocalist of the band, is not like singing in the way that she sings on other Big Brave albums. Strange instruments. They built an instrument for this album. It's very weird, but I would recommend it.
Nice. My recommendation is Big Brave ODST for the Xbox 360. You get to play as a as a foot soldier. Yeah, it was a bad. All right. My recommendation is Hell with their single Heavy, spelled Hevy. First Hell record in almost a decade, 8 years. The follow up to the self-titled from 2017. Submersus will be dropping July 11th of this year. Through Sentient Ruin Records. It's going to feature 5 songs. The first one is fucking massive, and it is the band itself, MSW puts out some of like the most gut-wrenching, like fucking doom that I've ever heard. I mean, I loved Alluvion, obviously, when we talked to both MSW and ALN, Ms. More in Hell. That releases on Gilead Media, but like, holy fuck, like this just takes it and just crawling out of a pit in the center of the earth. Like, it's so massive, and I really just can't wait to hear what else this record has in store.
Mine is my recommendation for this week is the newest release from Sleep Token. Even I can't even get the joke out of my mouth. It's actually going to be much better. It's the newest single from Canada's own Cryptopsy, Malicious Needs. It's the second single off their forthcoming album, And Insatiable Violence, which will be their first release through Season of Mist Records. It is weird to think we've already got a new Cryptopsy record the most recent album, As Gomorrah Burns, came out at the tail end of 2023. And it's wild. They usually take quite a bit of time in between the releases, and this is pretty intense and was unexpected. So looking forward to this. This shit has riffs all over it.
The artwork looked cool too. They ended up working with the same artist who before he had passed away. I forget the name. I don't know if you know.
They've worked with him before. I know exactly who it is. Yep.
But it looks great. I'm stoked on that for sure. All right. Well, that's what we've been listening to. You can follow us for any updates on this show at Riff Worship Pod on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow our official playlist on Apple Music and Spotify. Hits from the Crypt. Riffs on Repeat. Dylan also does reviews. Reviews from the Dillbozer's Den on our YouTube page. You can check those out there. I guess we'll do Converge at another point in time. I'm sure
It'll
got
continue.
plenty of records to talk about. But for myself, for Dylan, for Swindle, we'll be back next week with something else. See you later. Bye.